No Ohio State game this weekend, but we're still being outrageous. We can't help ourselves. Doug Lesmerises, Stephen Means, Nathan Baird from cleveland.com. What we're going to do is make outrageous predictions for the rest of Ohio State season. So they're 3 games in. Game 4 was canceled. They have 4 regular season games left, then presumably the Big Ten championship game or another game that weekend, and then maybe the college football playoff. So however you want to phrase it, rest of the way, Nathan Baird, what's an outrageous prediction from you?
So before the season, we talked a lot about speculating who was going to lead Ohio State in sacks this season. And I think everybody thought it was going to be one of 2 guys, Zach Harrison or Tyreek Smith. And as we are through 3 games now, which will be the halfway total, as you just said, Zach Harrison has 1.5 sacks and Tyreek Smith has 0. And that's been one of the more puzzling developments so far, is both maybe the lack of impact from those guys, but also Harrison just being farther back in the rotation. So I am going to take Tyreek Smith to lead Ohio State in sacks over the second half of the season. I feel like something's just off there, and I don't know if it's something behind the scenes or what exactly is wrong there, but I think that's a group that needs kind of a fire lit under it. I think now is probably about the point of the season where that's going to be happening. I know that a lot of snaps are going to people like Jonathan Cooper, a team leader and a guy who's starting and playing a big role early, but I still think that there's plenty of capacity for these guys who are going to be more counted on as pass rush specialists to really step up there. And for him to have 0 at this point is one of the more surprising stats on this team. I think he gets 4 over the rest of the season.
I like it. There's a lot of room to kind of wade through some stuff here, because there's just like the superstars on this team, and then there's like a lot of good players who still you're kind of trying to figure out which way they're going to go. So now we'll go to Steven, whose outrageous prediction certainly is about Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I was just finishing up the math before we got on here. We have been talking about Ohio State having 2,000-yard receivers in one season, and that's probably not possible at this point. The more games you lose, the less possible it becomes. They've got 7 regular season games left, and then you can add in the Big Ten championship as an 8th. So I made it. Garrett Wilson still gets to 1,000 yards. He's a little more ahead of Chris Olave. I actually have the numbers. Garrett Wilson is averaging 8 catches and 114.7 yards per game, which is on pace for 56 catches for 802.9 yards per game. So I'm saying that he's probably going to have another explosive game where he maybe gets 150, 160 yards, and that kind of pushes him over the top. While Olave is 6 catches for 96 yards per game. He's on pace for 42 catches and 672 yards. So Garrett Wilson's just in a better position to make that happen, especially if you add in playoff games, Big Ten championship, and national championship game as well. I think it's something Garrett Wilson can still achieve, even if they're, at this point, 10 possible games to do it.
You're saying that's the pace they're on for 7 regular season games and the Big Ten championship?
No, just for the regular season.
Just the regular season. Okay.
Yeah.
For a 7-game regular season.
Yeah, that's what they're on.
So you're saying he'll get to 1,000 by the end of the regular season?
Just in general, he'll get to 1,000 yards by the end of their season. Yeah. I did it for the pace. To make my point, I said, here's what he's going to be. He can get to 800 yards in 7 games, and then you can add in Big Ten championship, a playoff game.
Gotcha.
And then that's what gets him over the top.
He's averaging more than 100 receiving yards per game. If they don't have another game that they miss and they reach the national championship, they'll play 10 games, and he'll get there easily, probably. But still, it's not, you still got to maintain a pace. You got to have no more games missed. You got to reach the national championship. It's like, all they got to do is make the national championship game, which is like, I feel like we're assuming during the course of this season, but also it's hard to do that. So, yeah.
And with so few games, all you need is one game where like you burn a guy terribly and he grabs your jersey and it ends up being a pass interference instead of a long catch a couple times. And that maybe cost you with just as few games as they're playing.
But the fact that they've already had one game canceled also makes it outrageous, because every game matters. And so if they lose another game, that's less of a chance he has.
Or they lead 48-0 against Michigan State at the half, and Garrett Wilson is in street clothes coming out of the locker room because Ryan Day says we're shutting it down, stuff like that. So in a truncated season like this, 1,000-yard season for a receiver would still be quite a thing. When you think about there haven't been all that many 1,000-yard receivers in Ohio State history in normal years. I'm going with the running backs for mine. So far this year, Master Teague has 47 carries and Trey Sermon has 36 carries. So Master Teague has 1.3 times as many carries as Trey Sermon does. I'll say the rest of the way, the rest of the games that they play from this point on, if we take them down to 0, Master Teague will have at least twice as many carries as Trey Sermon. So that if you did that so far this year and Trey Sermon had 36 carries, then Master Teague would have 72 instead of 47. I just think we end up in a place where it's not a timeshare anymore. They lean on Master Teague. And I think Nathan had made this point along the way. They are running the ball a lot. I mean, it's like Master Teague is getting 16 carries a game while sharing the load. Trey Sermon's getting 12 carries a game. They're getting 28 carries a game out of their primary 2 tailbacks. That's quite a healthy workload. So I was going to say, Master Teague averages, 21 carries a game or something the rest of the year. But my main point is I just think he pulls away as the main back and that it's not going to be basically a split from here on out the way it has been so far. Those are our outrageous predictions for the second half of the season. Nathan is in charge of seeing by the end of the year if we are right or if we are wrong.
I am.
Oh, I didn't tell you that? I've been thinking about this. I think there's an opportunity at some point for us to go back through some of the Market Down Monday podcasts we have done in the previous 4 months and see what has come true, what hasn't come true, what's still out there. We like to make predictions, so let's hold ourselves to some predictions. So we'll come back in February, whenever this season is over, and see how right or wrong we were about this. Make sure that you're listening to our Buckeye Talk podcast 5 days a week, wherever you find podcasts. Read cleveland.com/OSU. Try our text subscription. If you don't know what it is, you send a text to 614-350-3315. We send texts about Ohio State news and analysis into your phone. You get a 14-day free trial, 14-day free trial. See what you think. For now, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Thanks for reading cleveland.com. We'll be back with picks for this Big Ten weekend later. Those are our outrageous predictions for the rest of this Ohio State season.